Cormac McCarthy and the Nuclear Bomb. In Cormac McCarthy's two latest novels, The Passenger and Stella Maris, McCarthy explores the implications of the nuclear bomb not just on humanity, but on the physics world itself. As we know, McCarthy is a lover of physics, and the nuclear bomb in physics and on a political level is the big kahuna. We are hearing nuclear talk again today in 2023.
Little rocket man.
They want to shoot. It's time for us to fucking shoot, cocksuckers. They want to get down and dirty. Don't forget who the fuck we are. You understand me? We're the baddest motherfuckers out there. You send a message to that fucking North Korean. He's going to be sniffing my dick and sucking my asshole.
And McCarthy gives a ton of commentary on the nuclear bomb because the protagonists, Alicia and Bobby Western's father, was a physicist on the Manhattan Project. And McCarthy reignites an old theme from After Dark in The Passenger and Stella Maris. Sins of the father. The sin and the psychic weight of being involved in the Manhattan Project carries over with transgenerational trauma, even if you don't believe in it. Within the novel, with Alicia's mental health and Bobby's recklessness and conflictions. So McCarthy connects his sins of the father trauma to the atom bomb also. You guys have to hear this wild quote. I know they was families got throwed off their farms back in the 30s by the TVA and come to Anderson County and got throwed off all over again. There was even families been removed from their homesteads in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in the 30s, TVA in the 30s again, and the atom bomb in the 40s. But at that time, they didn't have nothing. So McCarthy's father was an attorney for the Tennessee Valley Authority. And one of his main claims to fame and main projects in his life that he worked on was the removal of families who were living on land that was going to be flooded because of a dam, or were living in the Great Smoky National Park as farmers, homesteaders. His job was to legally, be the person who could say, you have to move. And that is a very traumatic thing. And that was the ripping away of urban Appalachian people from rural Appalachian people who had been living on that land for a very long time. And McCarthy, as we see in The Orchard Keeper, is very traumatized by these events that his father did and very much opposes them. And something that most people don't know is that there was nuclear or atom bomb facilities also near Knoxville in Tennessee that also removed people off of their land. I'm pretty sure that's what he's referring to here. So that's just an interesting note how the atom bomb affected people McCarthy personally knew, because he was probably 10 years old when a lot of these people were getting removed off of the land because of the atomic bomb stuff. What greater psychic weight can you carry around than manifesting a new paradigm of evil into the world? And McCarthy loves Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West, and we see this theme throughout all of his works. The Orchard Keeper, the Border Trilogy, even Suttree, the decline of these areas because of technology. But the nuclear bomb put a fat stamp on all of that. It drove us into the era, into the reality that we are now, and it still is a very influential factor in it. And so now let's look at Stella Maris and what Alicia's father thought about being involved in the Manhattan Project. So starting off, and this is Alicia talking about her father, he was one of a group of scientists who went into Hiroshima after the war to report on the damage. I think he was sobered by what he saw. I can't really speak for him. Whoever made the bomb was going to blow something up with it, and I'm sure he thought better us than them, whoever them might turn out to be. The arguments about Truman's decision generally center around the loss of life in a land invasion. My father had another take on it. He thought if Japan had been defeated in a land invasion, there would have been no miracle of reconstruction after the war, that Japan would have been humiliated as a nation and would have entered into a long decline. But as it was, they were not defeated in battle. They were defeated by witchcraft. And this is such a unique and fresh perspective from McCarthy, because I'm sure you have heard a million times, we needed to drop the nuke on Japan because we were going to lose 2 million soldiers taking the island. And that is true. But there was the Banzai and Bushido spirit present in Japan, and they were ready to fight with every man, woman, and child to the last of them to defend the island of Japan. They had been, being brainwashed for years for that reality because the Japanese leaders knew they were, losing the war. And so the trauma of that happening and obviously the humiliation of all that would have sent them, as McCarthy says, into a long decline. However, a counter argument to that is what Yukio Mishima would say. If you guys don't know, Yukio Mishima, a very famous Japanese author, he said that them not being able to fight out World War II just giving up and the emperor losing his god status instantly and reverting back to this capital, and letting the capitalist vultures come in, ruin Japan. His beautiful series, which is akin to the Border trilogy, it's called the Sea of Fertility tetralogy, is talks about this decline after World War II and the decline and impact of capitalism. Another great one is An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro. If you guys are into, great novels about, this time period in Japan. But McCarthy uses such a crazy word, witchcraft. And that's what it was. Being able to create, a nuclear bomb, an atomic bomb that could take out these entire cities was probably mind-blowing to a very conservative Japan, a Japan that had been being fed propaganda for years. They had no idea what was going on out in the world. And then obviously the atomic bomb took everyone by surprise. No one knew it was happening. No one knew that we had it. And so going back to the text quote, my father didn't sleep before the bomb and he didn't sleep after. I think most of the scientists didn't give that much thought to what was going to happen. They were just having a good time. They all said the same thing about the Manhattan Project, that they never had so much fun in their lives. But anyone who doesn't understand that the Manhattan Project is one of the most significant events in human history hasn't been paying attention. It's up there with fire and language. It's at least number 3, and it may be number 1. We just don't know yet, but we will. And this is obviously a major statement by Cormac McCarthy. He just said the nuclear bomb, the Manhattan Project, is as important as fire and language. And I 100% agree. I am very anti-war and anti-nuclear. I don't believe that we should have been in any conflicts as Americans since World War II. And that's somewhat of a rare perspective now because both political parties in America seemingly are pro-nuclear and pro-war now. Sometimes one side cares about a war more than the other side, but seemingly the past 60 years have shown us that the Republicans and Democrats are more than willing to go fight in useless wars and be involved in international conflicts. And now I want to talk to you guys. I want to throw the ball into your court before we start looking at more quotes and getting into all this. I want to know what you think about the nuclear bomb. What do you think about the Manhattan Project, the implications of nuclear weapons? Just whatever thoughts you want to give. I'll be brain dumping throughout this whole time. And if you guys would like to read a cool book, this is a book that I would recommend you find at the library and make a copy somewhere on the dark web or through interlibrary loan or something. It's very good, but I also understand that this is a compilation book of very radical libertarians talking about how to abolish nuclear weapons. It's called Hotter Than the Sun. And what this book showed me, and I already knew this, but it just shows how close-minded we still are around nuclear weapons, that even to this day, that America has thousands of nuclear weapons. Random places like India and North Korea, Israel have nuclear weapons. A nuclear holocaust akin to the road, whether that was a volcano or a nuclear holocaust, can still happen. And it's somewhat ridiculous that the political parties and the experts that always claim deterrence and nuclear deterrence are the ones that keep getting involved in conflicts and wars. Deterrence is a great idea and works when there's no bad blood and built up tension between the nations, because why would someone randomly do something? But if an crazy dictator who can brainwash a population or his leadership staff to see any form of tension, massive tension as a form of aggression to use nuclear weapons, then it's all over. And obviously we see this depicted very well in Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. And not to go all literary positive on everyone, but that is one of the reasons I'm here and trying to create a literary renaissance, is because I think books are one of the strongest modalities to create nonviolent human beings. Obviously, books and knowledge can radicalize people, but the more people research, and if it's done with others and it's done holistically into all different types of topics, the more measured you become through time. Especially if that's combined with other types of education, knowledge of the self and of the body, mind, soul, meditation, whatever. Researching and putting these things into practice can do this. But enough from me. What about Cormac McCarthy? What does he think about nuclear war and if it's going to happen? Well, let's hear from Alicia. And it's very funny that Cormac McCarthy in his interview with Lawrence Krauss said everything in this book is basically true. So I know that Cormac seemingly feels this way. Starting down here, you said that the Manhattan Project was a major historical event. Is it possible to see it with any sort of perspective? We've been a really long time without a nuclear war. Yes, Well, it's probably like any bankruptcy. The longer you're able to put it off, the worse it's going to be. The next great war won't arrive until everyone who remembers the last one is dead. You think that nuclear war is inevitable? I agree with Plato that only the dead have seen an end to war, and people don't fight with rocks when they have guns, etc., and so on. We're living in a fool's paradise. I don't know what we're living in. So McCarthy takes his stand here. He, for a moment resurrects the judge, resurrects a lot of the themes of Blood Meridian, that violence is inherent to humans and it's not going anywhere. All this non-violence talk that I'm talking about is just a bunch of woo-woo utopian gibberish. And obviously, a nuclear war, if it happened, would be immense. I mean, basically everyone's going to die. I mean, nuclear holocaust. And the trajectory that we're going in right now, it somewhat seems inevitable. That when I look at humanity, I don't see an awakening. People talk, this is a very big point of contention, but I wholeheartedly believe this, that we are not waking up as a world. I hear this all the time with my new age friends and with other people. We're waking up. I'm like, you must be in an echo chamber. If I go to the grocery store right now and I talk to 99, 100 people, 99 of them have no knowledge of self or the world around them. Most of them are violent. Most of them probably treat their parents, their spouse, their pets, their spouse, their children, people around them like crap. They probably don't have that much emotional control. And when we look at the passenger and some of the theories about it, a lot of it seems connected to their father. There's all this stuff about the father and his involvement with these bombs and missing files, him stacking gold, Alicia maybe being the passenger again, and, faking her suicide. There's all these different theories, but there is this trail in that, that pushes the plot in both of these novels that comes back to the Manhattan Project. And Bobby says in The Passenger, I didn't have a problem with the bomb. The bomb was coming. So in other Cormac McCarthy novels, the bomb is referenced. The most overt one is at the end of The Crossing. There is a reference to a false sun and a second sunrise. And this really exemplifies how The Crossing is really starting to talk about the start of the nuclear age, the end of a very important era in American history, of this freedom era, and it's taking place in New Mexico. And another connection that takes place, obviously, in New Mexico is the gang is walking on the Alcali Flats, which is somewhat where the Trinity test site took place. If you look at, White Sands National Park, it's just the Trinity test site is just right above it. We could question at the end of The Crossing, why is Billy crying? Most likely he's crying for the wolf and the loss of his brother and family and all that. But we could also say that he's crying about the appropriation of nature's power and the final, and taking the final step toward alienating ourselves from nature forever. With the nuclear era, we are no longer, you could say, even human, Homo sapiens. Whatever joy in humanity we used to have can no longer exist. And it's true. Look where we're at now with technology and other things. Like we have transitioned for better or for worse. And it's funny because the video I was showing with the nuclear bomb at the start is from Twin Peaks season 3. And once again, David Lynch put this massive nuclear bomb scene in doing all this because that's where he said the conception of evil. That's where the conception of evil in Twin Peaks started from, is from the nuclear bomb. And the protagonist in Twin Peaks is stuck with these with these hallucinatory figures. There's a lot of government conspiracies and government involvement and cover-ups in both. I mean, that's kind of the undertone of The Passenger. So if you guys want to dive deeper into the philosophy of Cormac McCarthy, I just released an interview right over here with Dr. Patrick O'Connor, and where we go deep into the philosophy of Cormac McCarthy. Peace.